Unfortunately, PFF's Black Friday sale is no longer going on, but we have a brand new discount to give you guys right now. That is a 30% off discount this holiday season with the promo code HOLIDAY30 to get 30% off a PFF Plus subscription. You get access to our player prop tool that can help you make back whatever you pay for PFF Plus and then some. It can also help you win a fantasy football championship this year. Get the same grades and analytics that every single NFL team uses and every single college football team uses as well. And you get access to the best mock draft simulator on the planet for the 2026 NFL Draft. Again, Holiday 30 to get 30% off a PFF Plus subscription right now. Let's get to the biggest game of the year. And the defending national champion Ohio State Buckeyes, for the first time they've lost since losing to Michigan last year in the final game of the regular season. Ohio State goes down to Indiana. Indiana beating Ohio State 13-10, just like that Michigan game last year, Dalton. 13-10, final score for Ohio State. Indiana winning its first Big Ten title since 1967, their first outright Big Ten title since 1945, and the Hoosiers will enter the playoff as the number one team in college football, the only undefeated team left in college football. It will be the first ever number one ranking for the Indiana program. Let's go over the highest graded players from this Big Ten championship game. Highest graded player, we'll get to him in a second, Fernando Mendoza, locking up a Heisman Trophy with a 92.3 grade, a career high grade for Fernando Mendoza against one of the best defenses in college football. His star receiver, Charlie Becker, was outstanding in this game as well with a 90.6 grade. For Elijah Hardy, the linebacker, 90. Safety, Lewis Moore, 83. Another wide receiver here, and Elijah Surratt, 70.6. And an edge rusher in Stephen Daly, 70.1. For Ohio State, their highest grade players in the loss, D-tackle Katie McDonald, 78.3. Linebacker Sonny Styles, 74.3. Wide receiver Carnell Tate was kind of ignored, really, in that entire second half, 72.9. Jalen McClain, the safety, 72.6. Wide receiver Jeremiah Smith, 72.3. And Julian Sayin, who also had a shot to win the Heisman Trophy last night, only with a 72.2 grade in the loss. Dalton, what told the story in this game?
So I think the first thing to know about the game as a whole, as you can tell by the final score, and like you mentioned, just like it was in their loss to Michigan last year, Ohio State's loss to Michigan last year, 13-10, this was a defensive slugfest. And I think the first fun thing to me about these playoff rankings and where we're going to go with this, I think you could very easily argue that the 5 best defenses in college football are the first 5 teams that are going to be ranked in these final playoff rankings between these two teams, Texas Tech, Georgia, and I would throw Oregon in there with that unit Dan Lanning's got. They've been playing outstanding football the second half of the year, and that's what you got is arguably the 2 best defenses in college football. Here in this game, playing to a 13-10 game, and the stat that stands out the most to me, these two teams combined to go 2 for 8, 2 touchdowns in 8 red zone trips. Obviously, the successes were timed out a little bit differently with Indiana and Elijah Surratt getting the game-winning touchdown in the second half. They hit 2 field goals and missed one from 39 yards after they were in the red zone, and Fernando Mendoza got sacked. And then you have Ohio State, just the Carnell Tate touchdown early, 1 made field goal, and then the 2 crucial errors, a missed 27-yarder from Jaden Fielding, and the 4th and 1, the quarterback sneak from Julian Sayin where his knee went down short of the line to gain at the 5-yard line. Crucial opportunities missed for both teams, but 2 of them for Ohio State, one of them making the huge difference in this game with the missed field goal. And Ohio State, I think, really I should say both teams, a great defensive effort. How about this? Each team only missed 3 tackles all night. Just ridiculous levels of defensive football in this game. But Ohio State, a 68.6 offensive grade as a team, their second lowest of the season, only behind the Texas game. Indiana, first and foremost, kept themselves in the game here all night with just an outstanding defensive effort that's so representative of their team. The front 7 is outstanding in run fits. I believe they only gave up 87 rushing yards on the night, excluding sacks, because we count it right around here. And then the coverage was just terrific. The mixing up of looks, the rotation of coverages, everything that made Julian Sayin hold the football just a little bit longer than he wanted to. First and foremost, this was an A++ effort, really from both defenses, but especially from Indiana, considering they were the underdog in this game and the offense you're going against with this quarterback and these receivers.
Yeah, my stat goes into the Indiana defense even more. Indiana had 5 sacks in the Big Ten title game. Ohio State only allowed 6 sacks all season going into that game. And I mentioned before how if Indiana wanted to pull off the upset and beat Ohio State, they had to consistently pressure Julian Sayin, and they did exactly that. A 31% pressure rate in the game. Sayin had a 50.1 passing grade when pressured. He was 2 for 6 for 58 yards, and of course taking 5 sacks too. 79.7 passing grade when kept clean. Still not his usual elite self. Usually he has like a 95 passing grade when kept clean, but if he was kept clean in this game by Ohio State, they probably would have won overall. 3 of Indiana's 5 sacks actually came from their linebackers in this one. So a lot of well-timed blitzes, a lot of simulated pressures from Indiana as well. They really confused Julian Sayin, a redshirt freshman quarterback. In this one, like you mentioned, Dalton, Sayin's average time to throw in this game was 3.44 seconds. So he was holding on to that football for a very long time. He took too long reading those defenses that, like you said, rotated in their zone coverage a lot. In there too. So a lot of disguised coverages for Indiana that led to Sayin hold on to the football for a very long time, and also led to a lot of sacks for Indiana too. Sayin overall still had a really solid game. Again, like over a 70 PFF grade. Solid game for him, but he could not have the Heisman performance that he needed in order for Ohio State to win this game.
You mentioned it, that highest average time to throw of the season. Only the 3rd time this season he's been over 3 seconds, and that's the signature. To me, the 2 signatures of Indiana's defense are, I don't think any team in the country fits the run better up front, no matter what coverage they're in, no matter how many safeties are in the box. I don't think any team fits the run better than Indiana. I would argue their run defense has been the best part of their team since Curt Cignetti's gotten there over the last 2 years. And 2, you mentioned it, disguising coverages, moving safeties, giving you different looks post-snap than you think you're getting pre-snap. And you could see Julian Sayin just a little more hesitant as a young redshirt freshman quarterback as far as what he was looking at, right? They were shading things toward Jeremiah Smith in zone coverage, a similar way to how Texas has attacked Ohio State in their 2 matchups with them the last 2 years, and you saw the effect of that on Sayin having to work to the backside. And then honestly, Indiana was just a more physical team, especially on the defensive side in this game. I thought especially in the interior, they really dominated Ohio State's offensive line, and that was the same question we really had going into the playoff last year for Ohio State. Remember, they got dominated inside by Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. Is this offensive line good enough to win a championship? We're going to find that out in the playoff once again, but Indiana, again, schematically and physically, an A-plus defensive effort that's one of the best in recent memory. It really is.
So let's go over from the Indiana defense in this one to the Indiana offense, Dalton. Who do you want to shout out in this game?
Well, I didn't know if you wanted to go first with the star of the show there, but I'll shout out a guy who's just been red hot ever since they basically discovered him in the Penn State game, Charlie Becker, the wide receiver. 300-yard games in his past 4, an 89.8 receiving grade in this game, 6 catches, 126 yards, 6 first downs, the go ball at the end of the game that really sealed things for Indiana. I mean, eventually Indiana was going to have to make a couple of plays against man-to-man coverage because they did struggle against it for the most part in this game. But the 2 plays that came up large against man coverage, 1, the Elijah Surratt touchdown, and 2, the play at the end to seal it really and run the clock, most of the clock out with Charlie Becker. I mean, this guy, 3 for 3 on contested targets. He's 8 for his last 8. Whew. Uncontested targets across, I believe it's the last 5 games. I mean, he's just come out of nowhere to become a legitimate 3rd threat. And the 2nd time this year, think about this, that he's had a huge game. The Penn State game, Elijah Surratt didn't play. He had a huge game, made a ton of great plays in that game. This one, Omar Cooper goes down on his first target of the game, basically doesn't play at all in this game. Becker steps up once again. They now have a legitimate 3rd receiver that can threaten you with size, a little bit of speed to get vertical, and the contested catch abilities off the charts. He's 8 for his last 8. He's 9 for 10 for the season, and he made some massive plays in this game. Once again, Charlie Becker is a legitimate threat that they've discovered now in the latter half of the season, and he's only added more to a really dynamic passing game.
Yeah, and hopefully Omar Cooper, now that he has a couple weeks off, or a few weeks off really, until they play next game in the quarterfinal round, hopefully that means he comes back from whatever injury he suffered in that game, because if you have those 3 out there, it's a really dangerous trio, and when you have the Heisman Trophy winner at quarterback, it's a very dangerous passing game for Indiana. And that brings me to the next guy right now. Fernando Mendoza is your 2025 Heisman Trophy winner. 92.4 passing grade against Ohio State. 3 big-time throws, no turnover-worthy plays. The interception that he had actually was not his fault because it was dropped by the receiver into the hands of the Buckeyes. Over an 83% adjusted completion rate as well. And Dalton, this guy has come out massive in huge moments for Indiana this year. The game-winning drive against Penn State, that was all Mendoza in that one. The game-winning drive against Iowa had some clutch plays in the win over Oregon in Eugene earlier this year. And now a maestro performance, a career-high PFF grade against the Ohio State defense, the number 1 team in the country, the defending national champion, a team that has not lost all year in the biggest moment of the year so far in the Big Ten title game. If you want Heisman moments, that's mentioned a lot for a lot of top Heisman candidates, you want Heisman moments, Mendoza has those in spades this year. Not to mention, he led Indiana to their, right now at least, their best season in school history. No matter what happens in the playoff, they could lose in their quarterfinal round. It's still the best year ever in Indiana history. It's their first ever number 1 ranking in school history as well. Fernando Mendoza will be the program's first Heisman Trophy winner. They had a runner-up in running back Anthony Thompson back in 1989 when he finished second to Andre Ware, the Houston quarterback, in that Heisman race. Indiana has never had a Heisman Trophy winner. Fernando Mendoza will be the Heisman winner this year. And Dalton, I want to shout out him, and I want to shout out Curt Cignetti because, again, what an amazing job Cignetti has done at that program. Indiana, before they hired Curt Cignetti, won a combined 9 games in the 3 years before he was hired. And now Indiana, last year, they had a Cinderella run last year, one of the best years in school history, going 11-2, making the playoff, losing to Notre Dame. They're even better this year with a 13-0 record so far, the number 1 team in the country going into the playoff. Indiana had not been ranked in the top 5 since 1967. In fact, only 2 years they were ranked in the top 5 before Cignetti got there in 67 and 1945. So this is legitimately the best Indiana teams that we've ever seen right now, and 2 years for Cignetti so far at Indiana, and 2 straight years they're making the playoff, and right now this year, Dalton, they could win the whole damn thing.
And, oh no, they absolutely can. The national title race is wide open, and you think about the only 2 games that he's lost at Indiana were to the 2 teams that played in the national title game last year, the 2 best teams in the country last season, and now he's gotten revenge on Ohio State. Is there a road where he may have to get revenge on Notre Dame in the playoff? We'll find that out later. But I think when you look at Mendoza, what really sticks out to me in this game is the 3 big-time throws. His second most of the season, he had 5 against Penn State. This was his second most, all 3 of them on third down, and really, they were the 3 biggest plays of the game. The deep post to Charlie Becker on 3rd and 2, that really flipped the field and gave him an opportunity to score. The touchdown throw to Elijah Surratt from the far hash on the back shoulder, just an unbelievable throw. And then I mentioned the Charlie Becker go ball that really allowed them to milk out most of the clock here. Mendoza was outstanding when he had to be, and sometimes in a game like this and against an elite defense, that's what you're asking for from your quarterback. If this is going to be, if we're going to call this guy an elite quarterback, and now we just pretty much have to do it, right? He made it undeniable that he's an elite quarterback in college football and probably QB1 now in the draft for this performance. Those 3 big-time throws, they're going to get played endlessly from now through the end of April, because you could argue they were his 3 best throws of the entire season. Yeah, really, honestly, just unbelievable stuff from Mendoza in the clutch. Like you mentioned, the interception, not his fault at all, with the ball bouncing around on a screen and all of that. Just terrific performance. Understood the assignment when he had to get rid of the football, throw it away, live to play the next down. This was honestly, it was his highest graded game of his career, and it's not like he threw for 400 yards or anything like that, but this really was him at his best.
Yeah, Fernando Mendoza will win the Heisman Trophy, most likely be QB1 in the NFL Draft too. What a time to have your best game of your career against Ohio State in the Big Ten title game. All right,